Hello everybody, my name is Jake from Umbrella IT Services, and today we're going to be talking about G Suite for nonprofits. So I've done a lot of work in this field. I've worked with G Suite for over 4 years now, working directly with Google, other partners in the area. I've worked with a ton of nonprofits, including the BC Professional Firefighters Association. I've done seminars for the International Association of Firefighters, and I've worked with a number of their subsidiaries and a number of other nonprofits in a wide different area of sectors there. So very experienced in this field, and I'm very excited today to talk with everybody about G Suite for nonprofits because this is one of my favorite things to do. It helps nonprofits a lot. There's a lot of fun stuff inside of this presentation. For example, Google will actually provide your nonprofit with $120,000 a year of free advertising. A lot of people don't know that. So we're going to dive into it right now. We're going to talk about a lot of this stuff, and I hope you enjoy. So without any further ado, we'll just jump into it today. So the first thing I want to talk about with everyone is, what is G Suite for nonprofits? So as you can see there, G Suite for nonprofits is a collection of cloud-based productivity and collaboration tools created by Google. So I've broken this down into 4 categories because, as you can see, there's a lot of applications, there's a lot of use cases. So I like to break them down into 4 categories, those being connect, create, access, and control. So looking at connect, we can see that that contains the applications Gmail, Hangouts, Google Contacts, and Google Calendar. So we're going to use Gmail to be able to communicate with people over email. We're going to use Hangouts chat to be able to directly instant message our coworkers or other people. We're going to be able to use Hangouts Meet for video conferencing, screen sharing, all that kind of stuff. Google Contacts is where we can build directories of contacts that we can share within our team or externally or use privately. And Calendars is a calendar management application. So moving on to create, we can see there we've got Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Forms, Google Sites, and Google Keep. So looking at Docs, this is a Microsoft Word cloud-based equivalent. So if you like Microsoft Word, you will find a lot of similarities with Google Docs. Looking at Google Sheets, it's the same thing, but it's with Excel instead of with Word. Slides is the Google equivalent of PowerPoint. Forms is very unique and one of my favorite applications. So Forms, we're going to be able to use Google Forms to be able to send off surveys, quizzes, questionnaires, voting, tons of different use cases for Google Forms. And we're going to be able to use Google Forms to collect data at the end of the day. That's what we're doing. We're asking questions internally or externally. We're taking that data in. We're going to click 1 or 2 buttons. And we're going to be able to analyze that data immediately or transition it over to an Excel sheet. So Google Forms is one of my favorite applications. Google Sites is where you can build free websites. So you're going to be able to build websites for your organization. So that would be externally or internally. I like to use Google Sites to build websites for folks so that they can go ahead and look at things like, let's say, an event or a fundraiser or maybe items in your store. You're going to be able to host all of that stuff inside of Google Sites for free and drive traffic to those sites using Google Ads. Maybe, again, I'll use the firefighters as an example. You're doing recruiting. You can then set up a recruiting website with a Google form, a Google Calendar, Google Maps location, and then you can go ahead and collect the data you need to collect and then drive traffic to it using the Google advertisements. Looking at Google Keep, this is a note-taking application, a task list, and many other use cases for this. But at the end of the day, it is a note-taking application that you can set reminders for. You can set up different task lists inside of it. You can share these tasks with people. There's a great number of possibilities with Google Keep. Looking at access, we can do things like Google Drive. This is how we're going to access the data inside of these applications. So Google Drive, we're going to be able to use that to access our files. We're going to be able to access shared drives, which we're going to get into a little bit later. This is a shared cloud-based storage solution where people are going to be able to share resources with each other and share them externally, internally, etc. Google Chrome is something where you're going to be able to access the web and access the majority of these tools through. And Google Photos is a free photo hosting application where you're going to be able to store an unlimited number of photos that get organized by AI. So if you have someone in your non-profit organization or your charitable organization, you're going to be able to punch up that person's name and get every photo of them that has ever been taken inside of your organization. Very great if someone's retiring, really good if someone is being celebrated. Very, very cool functionality there by Google. You're also going to be able to look at things like places and things and a number of other things. So very happy they've included Google Photos for nonprofits. Looking at control, this is kind of our administrative and overview section. So we're going to be able to use the admin panel to go ahead and control access to things. We're going to be able to create groups inside of here, create organizational units. We're going to talk about all that stuff later, but at the end of the day, the admin panel is where you're going to be able to enable applications, and you're going to be able to grant access to those applications, and you're going to be able to grant permissions and revoke permissions, create users, administrate your instance of G Suite. Looking at Google Vault is an application where you're going to be able to archive and store your data. So in case someone accidentally deletes something, you're going to be able to keep it backed up in Google Vault. It is not a backup service. It is simply a way to audit information and make sure that things do not go missing or get deleted. You can use Google Vault, for example, if you have someone who is doing fundraising and you need to be able to audit their activity, or you need to be able to search through emails, search through files, etc., and find something that was accidentally deleted or something that you are just an item of interest that you need to find. You're also going to be able to use the mobile device management section of Control. Inside of there, you're going to be able to grant access to certain devices if you want to keep things secure, so that's nice and easy. You're going to be able to wipe devices in case they get lost. You're going to be able to assign devices to individuals. If you were to pick up a number of Chromebooks, for example, for your association, you may want to grant a Chromebook to someone like your president, vice president, board members, or simply workers. You will be able to say this Chromebook is assigned to this staff member. They have permission to access these applications on this Chromebook, and they are not able to download data to this Chromebook, for example. And then looking at work insights and reporting, we're going to be able to see what user accounts are doing, what applications they're accessing. We're going to be able to access reports based on applications, based on users, based on resources. This gives you total oversight of your administration. It is a fantastic tool. I'm excited to look at the reporting section with everybody and kind of dig into that a little bit more. But for now, this is a very good overview of what G Suite offers you. Again, you're able to connect with people inside of your organization. You're able to create and collaborate with them. You're all able to access the data in a similar, secure fashion. And as an administrator, you're able to control what goes where in your organization. So let's move on to the next slide here. Looking at the cost-benefit analysis of G Suite for nonprofits, a lot of people ask me, all this stuff sounds great, but how much does it cost? Well, as a nonprofit, it costs you $0. Google provides this for you for free. You're able to use all of the tools I mentioned previously for free. You will obviously need to be paying in labor and a configuration cost, either with your own time or through a professional or an organization like myself or Umbrella IT Services. But the cost from Google to implement this solution is $0. Most companies, I've got a bit of a case study done here, again by Forrester Total Economics. Again, I'm a big fan of them. In my Microsoft 365 presentation that I did about a month ago, I used their analysis as well. This chart here up on the right-hand side, we can see a $55.7 million return on investment, and that's a $12.9 million investment, which is a 331% ROI. So again, of an average of, I believe it was 69 different organizations, they were able to return 331% of their investment on this. And the breakdown of this is a $1.6 million increase in IT productivity, because as an IT provider, I'm not going to be maintaining a server, I'm not going to be maintaining workstations, I don't have to worry about security in a lot of ways. I'm able to kind of offload a lot of that responsibility to Google. You also have the 2.4 reduced risk of data breach. Again, you're able to very, very tightly monitor and control the permissions of G Suite, so you're going to be able to reduce the risk of a data breach there. You're not going to get hit by ransomware and have that affect your organization, etc. There's a lot of ways to reduce risk with G Suite. You're also doing reduced security and remediation costs, again, kind of related to the reduced risk of data breaches. Again, people are not going to be messing with the integrity of your data or your association. You're going to be able to use Google Vault in case anything like that happens. And my favorite thing to mention here is the capital expense and operating expense savings. So you'll notice that's $11.6 million. So of a $12.9 million investment, people saved $11.6 million, almost 90%. Just on their operating expenses and their expenditures on other software. How much money do you spend on website hosting? How much money do you spend on things like Microsoft Office, etc.? You're going to be able to save on that. And in terms of the collaboration, the sharing, being able to use all of these same platforms, you're going to be able to save money on the operating expenses as well. Looking at things like increased profit, again, because you have the ability to drive more traffic to your website, you're going to be able to increase your profit by $12.9 million. We have a guest today. We're also going to be able to increase your productivity, again, by $22.1 million total across these organizations in the Forrester Economic Study. So, looking down at the bottom right here, we can see that 8 organizations, I think the 69 was from the Microsoft Association. So these 8 organizations from a variety of sectors realized a mean 331% ROI over 3 years. So you can see within the first year, they were able to get all of their initial investment back across these organizations. So very important to note that during the first year, you will be spending more money. But after the first year, you should steady out, your team should get accustomed to the new software, and you should really start to see the benefits here. One of the benefits being $10,000 a month in free targeted advertisements. So you're able to apply for something called a Google grant once you've been granted Google for nonprofits, and they're going to give your organization $10,000 a month in free targeted advertisements. So whether that's recruiting volunteers, whether that's promoting things like events that you're doing, promoting fundraisers that you're hosting, selling merchandise, etc. I'm sure that you will have a number of ways that your nonprofit can benefit from this. If you're a mental health association, you're going to be able to help spread things about mental health and make sure people are aware of the cause you're supporting. If you're something like a sexual health clinic, you're going to be able to promote that stuff. There are a wide number of benefits to using G Suite for nonprofits. And again, that $10,000 a month does not hurt. So we'll move on to the next section here. The benefits of G Suite. So again, you can see at the top, organizations that properly implement G Suite address existing challenges and experience a number of additional benefits, some of these being savings. Again, you're going to be able to reduce the cost of your operation on average by 36%. So again, your staff is going to become 36% more productive, and you're going to be spending 36% less money on capital expenses and operating expenses by implementing G Suite properly. And we're going to talk about how to properly implement that very shortly. Looking at accessibility, you're going to be able to access your data on any device, anywhere, anytime. You're able to loosely allow access to your organization, which we do not recommend, but you will be able to guarantee your staff is able to access anything they need, anytime, anywhere in case of an emergency, which means that they are going to be more flexible in the time of the ongoing zombie apocalypse that we're currently experiencing. You're going to be able to work from home. You're going to be able to work from the car. You're going to be able to work anywhere, really, which is fantastic. You don't need to have an office if everything that you're working with is in the cloud. Another thing to look at is the security. You're going to be able to dramatically increase the security of your organization and its data using G Suite. Again, Google has a team of engineers working around the clock to make sure that G Suite remains secure. All of the data that you upload there is going to be encrypted, and it's going to be very, very secure compared to a regular on-site file server. We have done a lot of audits for different organizations, and we've noticed that they are not always following up with IT best practices, which can be a bit of a shame. But this is something where you don't need to worry about that stuff so much. We do have another video on IT security that I recommend everybody watches, as well as IT backups, as it is very, very important to keep those things in mind. But G Suite does do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. The only thing that I want to keep in mind for everybody is, as Canadian organizations, it is very important to note that at this time, Google does not offer Canadian hosting, which means that if you are storing personal data, such as health records, etc., you are violating some Canadian law. There's regulations against storing very private information in American servers. I'm happy to answer any questions about via email at techtips@umbrellaitservices.ca. But I do just need to bring that up as a quick brief. Looking at organization, you're going to be able to develop a proactive, systemic approach to G Suite and organize your association's resources, workflows, and users in a way that complements G Suite very nicely. Now, I'm going to show you guys an example of that very soon, but this is one of my favorite reasons of working with G Suite, working with Microsoft 365 for nonprofits, etc. When you organize your association into these three categories, it becomes very, very easy to administrate things. It becomes very easy to change over roles. I know a lot of places elect different chair members. People are constantly changing roles, and being able to have things like a website set up for somebody who's being initiated, having different resources automatically assigned to people based on the roles that they've assumed is a very, very easy way to transition roles. That's one of the benefits that I've noticed. Looking at collaboration as well, you're going to be able to share anything in Google Drive, in your calendar, in your contact list, etc., with anyone inside or outside of your organization instantly. You're going to be able to collaborate live on different files. If you're working on the same Word document with somebody, you're going to be able to open up that Google Doc with a partner or with a vendor, and you're going to be able to work on that together while having a Google Meet going on, where you're going to be able to share your screen, you're going to be able to talk to the person directly. Collaborating with G Suite is huge, and that's a giant chunk of that 36% of savings that you're going to experience. Another thing is the reporting powers. You're going to get reports that you're able to generate for oversight on user activity. You're going to get reports for critical events. You're going to get reports for applications that are being accessed. There's a ton of different reports that you can set up, and I think it's very important to not neglect this. I see a lot of people not implement the reporting faction of their G Suite for Nonprofit instance, and that very much directly conflicts with my personal methodology, which is the PPDIOO way of doing things, which would be prepare, plan, design, implement, operate, and optimize. The optimize part of that is very, very important. You want to make sure that as you're using the software, you're looking at the hard data that Google provides you, and you're taking that feedback and improving the way your organization functions. Also looking at productivity. As I mentioned previously, you're going to be able to automate tasks, simplify workflows, and reduce downtime by implementing G Suite into your organization. So move on to the next slide here. We're going to very briefly touch on the Connect applications. Normally I would do a demo. My last demo with Microsoft 365 was nearly 3 hours, so I will not be doing that today. We do provide on-site training for folks, and we do more in-depth presentations about this topic for folks, but today I will be doing a brief overview of everything for people. Thank you again for your feedback to everybody that let me know that the timestamps were very helpful in the Microsoft 365 presentation, but overall they just don't have 3 hours to sit down and kind of pick that apart at one time, and because it is such a complex topic, it is a lot better to keep things brief. So looking at the Connect faction of G Suite, we can see that there's Gmail, which means we're going to be able to send emails, receive emails, organize our mail through labels and tags. We're going to be able to enable offline access. So if you want to be able to access your Gmail account on the web, you don't necessarily need to use Outlook. I know a lot of people prefer to use Outlook. A lot of people prefer to use Gmail. You can now use Gmail offline. You're going to be able to set up multiple inboxes inside of your G Suite. Again, another feature that a lot of people didn't know about. You will be able to have your charitable@organizationx.ca account next to your billing@organizationx.ca account, next to your personal email for that organizationx.ca. Having all of those email accounts in one pane of glass in the Gmail interface is very, very helpful. And it's got integrated AI now. So if you need to send off automated responses, if you wanted to automatically organize your email, if you want to filter notifications, Gmail is going to be able to do all of that for you automatically. Very much a fan of the Gmail application myself, and you are able to use Gmail and G Suite for nonprofits in tandem with Microsoft 365 for nonprofits. That's what we recommend for a lot of our clients, because each platform has a great deal of benefits for any association. And if you organize your association accordingly, you're going to be able to empower each section of your association with the appropriate platform while ensuring that the collaboration can occur without any sort of downtime or conflict happening there. Looking at Hangouts Chat and Hangouts Meet, we're going to be able to do instant messaging and voice calls with Hangouts Chat, and that's a mobile application as well as a web application. And you're going to be able to do voice calls, video calls, and screen sharing with Hangouts Meet as well. So again, Hangouts Chat, Hangouts Meet, two separate applications, very, very intuitive interfaces, very much a competitor for things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. I highly recommend using Hangouts whenever you can, as it will greatly increase the communication inside of your organization in a way where, you are going to be able to have oversight of things. You're going to be able to create different groups that people can immediately communicate in. You won't have people texting you. You won't have people phoning you. We want to make sure that most of the communication in your association is happening inside of these platforms, so that when we look at the reporting, we can see what's actually going on. And not mandatory, just recommended. Looking at things like Google Contacts, you're going to be able to create, manage, and share different contacts with people. I don't know how many organizations I've come into where they have one person who's in charge of this directory of contacts that's out of date. They spend a couple hours a week updating it. They have different vendors and charitable donations coming in, and it's very difficult to keep track of all of these folks. You can now have all of this stuff become automated, and you can set up shared directories that anyone can update, things that automatically update. There's a number of benefits to using the directory function of Google Contacts. You're also going to be able to delegate access to your own private contact list. So again, if you are a president or a board member and there are more boots on the ground staff that need access to your contact list, you are going to be able to delegate access to that list. And you're also going to be able to organize your list through labels. So again, another couple of features of Google Contacts there. Looking at Google Calendar, you're going to be able to create public or private calendars. Maybe you have an internal calendar that needs to be shared with everybody. Maybe you have a private internal calendar that you don't need to share with anybody. Maybe you have an event coming up that you would like to share the calendar event of. Maybe you would like to attach a Google form, a Google Maps location, and a Google Doc or a PDF to that calendar and share that with people that have signed up to previous events. You're going to be able to do that with Google Calendars. You're also going to be able to access different internet calendars. If you are a sports fan, I know a lot of people load that stuff in. You're going to be able to add in any sort of calendar that you'd like, and you're able to send off smart invitations inside of your association. This is a big deal, again, for a lot of the clients that we've worked with. When you are doing smart invitations, you're going to be able to send off a calendar invite to, let's say, again, we'll use the board members as an example. Maybe there's 8 people. Some people are in Kelowna. Some people are in Vancouver. Some people are in Calgary, etc. You're going to be able to create a calendar event on a date and time, and Google's calendar application will actually tell you that there's a conflict with one of the members. Everyone is available on this date and time, including yourself, and you'll be able to book that time slot without having to make 5 or 6 phone calls trying to arrange and coordinate everybody. Very, very good way to save, again, on that operating expense time. Moving on to the next slide here, we're going to talk about creation. So again, looking at Google Docs, it is a word processor. You're able to create, share, and manage different Google Docs. You're able to collaborate with people in real time. You get offline access to these documents now. You do not need to be connected to the internet. You're going to be able to get something called version history, which is one of my favorite features. You're going to be able to look at a document and see the additions and the edits that someone else in your team made to the document since you worked on it last. You're going to be able to recover parts of the document in case they were accidentally deleted, etc. Version history is a great, great feature. And the most important one, in my opinion, would be the templates. You're going to be able to create multiple templates for your association. Maybe you have meeting notes. Maybe you have charitable forms. a number of different Google Docs that you would have created that you reuse for different events or fundraisers, etc. You're going to be able to just click on one of these templates and a copy will automatically be created for you that you can then create, manage, and share with other members in your association. It's a great, great feature. And once it gets implemented, once you have a whole bunch of these templates available to you, you would be shocked at how much time really gets saved by using them. Looking at the built-in dictation, this is another thing where Google is leading the way. I've never seen dictation this good. Just hands down. I've never seen a dictation application, whether it's Dragon Dictation, Microsoft Dictation, Siri Dictation. Google is crushing these competitors with the built-in dictation. I've seen people take notes using Google Docs from across the room. I've seen a speaker speaking, somebody has a Google Doc open, and they are picking up the words, and it's being dictated with a 99% plus accuracy. I would highly recommend downloading Google Docs onto your phone, onto your computer, and trying out the dictation yourself to see just how good it is. It is fantastic. And if you're somebody that does not like typing on a phone, or you're somebody who likes sending off quick notes, this is going to be a great way for you to add to Google Docs. It also has built-in translation functionality now, so you're going to be able to translate things to a variety of different languages, which is great. Looking at Google Sheets, it's a spreadsheet program. As we know, it's just like Microsoft Excel. You're going to be able to create, manage, and Excel and share these spreadsheets, and you're going to be able to collaborate again in real time with people. You're going to get offline access. You get version history in case people have muddled things up, or in case you just want to see the additions or edits they made. You're going to be able to check those out. And there's also templates included. And there's, again, AI-powered queries, which I think is one of the most important pieces of functionality in this application. So what an AI-powered query is, let's say you have a list of donators that have recently donated to your association, or you have a list of visitors that recently came to an event. You have a list of people that came in. You would be able to collect information from these people, such as gender or location or age or whatever information you're gathering. You'll be able to click one button in the bottom right corner of the screen and say, what is the average age of the attendees of last week's fundraiser? And it will actually tell you their average age was 27, or their average age was 55. Their average location was Surrey or Vancouver or North Vancouver, etc. You're going to be able to get all of this data to you without having to know any of these Excel macros. And this is a feature that's improving weekly. So I highly recommend that you check out Google Sheets, take one of your existing data sheets that you have, copy paste the data from an Excel sheet into Google Sheets, and try out that AI-powered query functionality for yourself and see if it benefits you. Google Slides is PowerPoint, very straightforward. It's presentation software. You can be able to create, present, manage, share any device. You're going to be able to collaborate in real time with folks. There's offline access, there's version history, and there's templates. There's no real difference between PowerPoint and Google Slides that I know of at this time. Again, excuse me if I am incorrect there, but at the moment, it's a PowerPoint program that you can use anywhere that you need, and you're going to be able to collaborate with your team in real time, which is fantastic. Google Forms, again, one of my favorite applications. You're going to be able to collect data from the world around you, internally or externally. I've seen this used as a voting method. I've seen this used as a form for people that are attending places. I've seen this used as safety quizzes for things like WMIS, etc. I've seen this used as surveys if you're doing internal votes for things, or if you just want to see how people are feeling about a specific event, etc. You're going to be able to, again, collaborate in real time with folks as you create these forms. You're going to be able to enable offline access to these forms. And again, with one click, you can export that data to Google Sheets, which means that you're going to be able to take all of the data that you've collected from a Google form, put it in a Google Sheet, and use those AI-powered queries to get more information out of it. Google Forms also provides you with a fantastic visual representation of this data as well, but it's very important to note, again, that Google Forms does work directly with Google Sheets, which has that underlying AI-powered infrastructure. So, looking at Google Sites, this is a fantastic way if you are someone who is a lower budget nonprofit, if you cannot afford a webmaster or web services, you're going to be able to create an intranet, which is an internal intranet, or you're going to be able to create external websites for specific functions and drive traffic to these websites through your $10,000 a month Google grant. So, looking at Google Sites, you're going to be able to create an intranet, which is one of my favorite things to do. An intranet can be used in many different ways. Your internal intranet could be an onboarding website. It could be an internal event thing. It could be a news post for your members, for your volunteers, for your retirees, etc. There are a number of ways that you can set this up. My favorite way is for the internal members to be able to get elected into a position, and it'll say, welcome to the board. You are now granted access to these folders, these calendars, all of these files that we've shared with you, this contact directory. These are your responsibilities, these are the resources you need, and these are the different things that we assume, the expectations that we have for your new role. If you have any questions, you can reach out to these key contacts. Here is your new calendar that you've been granted access to with the schedule for the events that the previous person in this role was scheduling out, etc. It's a great way to collect information and present it to internal members. In terms of external people looking at a Google site, you're going to be able to set up a Google site for people so that they're going to be able to see, oh, you've got these things for sale, or you've got this event coming up, and it has a Google form for people to sign up and get attendance or buy tickets. You've got different things like a map that shows where the event is going to be, the calendar date for the event, etc. You're going to be able to add a lot of this stuff in the same way you would with a normal website. And again, you're going to be able to compensate for the lack of a proper webmaster by funneling that $10,000 a month in Google Grants to this Google site. It's also a very good way to get volunteers. Looking at Google Keep, you're going to be able to do an online notebook. Again, as I mentioned previously, you can just take notes with it. Very simple. You can do things like task lists. So one of the ways I see people use this personally is you show up at Superstore or Costco, gives you a notification saying, don't forget to buy eggs, you got to buy this, you got to buy that. You can also use it for task lists for people inside of your association. Maybe you have an event coming up, and for certain volunteers, they need to complete these tasks to be able to say that they are have sufficiently prepped for the event. You're going to be able to set that up as well. And you're going to be able to export these to Google Docs. As I mentioned previously, I've seen a lot of people taking notes using the dictation functionality. Maybe you're driving, you click a button instead of and doing the hands-free thing. You can also just say, okay, Google, record a note. Hey, Siri, record this note. And you're going to be able to export that document to Google Docs from Google Keep. There she goes. 1 second. Okay, so looking at the next section here, we have Google Access. So looking at Google Access, again, this is how we're going to be accessing all of the data that we've previously created with people in our team. We're going to be able to use Google Drive as a file storage and sync service. So anything you create will store up in the cloud and it'll sync with any device, whether that's your Mac, Windows, Android, or iPhone. That'll work with any of those. You're able to create and manage shared drives, which gives you nearly unlimited amounts of storage. You're going to be able to share different information with people in your association or use them privately. You're going to be able to check the activity bar, which I also call the babysitting bar. This is where you're going to be able to see what events have taken place inside of your private drive or inside of your shared drive. So if someone has deleted something, they've moved something, they've created something, they've edited something, you're going to be able to see who did it, when it happened, where they were working on it, etc. And again, they've now added offline access in case you wanted to access things through the web offline. The Google Chrome web browser is how you're going to be able to control access to people. Now, I've seen this used in a number of innovative ways, such as when someone joins your organization, again, they've taken over a specific role, they're going to be able to automatically inherit things such as bookmarks in their Google Chrome. They're going to automatically have different home pages load for them because they're part of this role, etc. You're going to be able to sync the data from your Chrome profile across multiple devices. So if you sign into Google Chrome on your iPhone, it's going to have the same bookmarks, home pages, and history as it would on your computer. You're going to be able to use Chromecast support. If you wanted to do a presentation, you're going to be able to click a button and beam your screen up to the big screen, and people will be able to see what you're working on, and you can do a Google Slides presentation on a Google Chromecast off your phone and a $50 TV dongle, and instead of having to have a projector and all these other expensive pieces of equipment for your nonprofit. You're also going to be able to use different extensions. So I've seen a lot of people use pop-up blockers. I've seen some people use applications like Honey, which is a discount application. Tons and tons of possibilities there. And Google Chrome has its own built-in task manager as well. So if things get a little bit sluggish or the internet is slow to load, you're going to be able to troubleshoot inside of Google Chrome now. Looking at Google Photos, as I mentioned previously, it gives you unlimited storage of all of your photos and videos. You're going to be able to edit those photos and videos using this software. You get to store an unlimited amount of media for free, and the AI will automatically identify and sort the photos on a variety of different categories, such as location, such as different faces, different things that are inside the photos, times and dates that you've taken them at, etc. And you're going to be able to share the photos out with folks. So again, really great piece of software there. Looking at the control side of things, again, this is the administrative section. You're going to be able to create a directory of internal users, groups, and organizational units. You're going to be able to allocate buildings and resources to folks, and you're going to be able to set up settings for this directory, such as person X has access to the entire organization, person Y has access to their department, and person Z has access to just themselves, etc. Looking at mobile devices and devices in general, you're going to be able to allocate permissions to folks based on their devices. So you will be able to set up things like mobile device management. You'll be able to set up things like this device is able to sign into this account, but not that account. It's a very good way to increase security and keep oversight of people. Again, you do not want to be intruding on your volunteers and members' personal lives. You want to keep things allocated to the specific Google applications, which is what this devices and applications section will allow you to do. You will not be able to track people's personal location with this. You will not be able to see what they're texting people. You will not be able to control their phone. You will not be able to do anything that is going to invade their privacy. But you will be able to see what they're doing inside of the application, such as they've sent 100 emails, they've sent 100 chat messages, they signed into a Google Calendar and created 25 events. This kind of general overview is what we want. We do not want to be invading people's privacy. The other kind of stuff we're going to be able to look at is the applications. We're going to be able to say that this person is allowed to access this application, that person is not able to access this kind of application. There's going to be a number of different permissions that we're going to be able to set during this part of configuring G Suite. Looking at things like additional Google services, there's a number of applications in here, such as Google Maps functionality. You're going to be able to look at additional functionality inside of Google Docs, and they have another, I believe, 25 to 50 minor applications that they allow you to control for your organization. Moving on to security, you have the Alert Center, you have app access control, security rules, and settings. Again, if you have a critical event occur, you will be able to get alerts based on that. You're able to set different app access based off of what account should be accessing what apps. You're able to set up security rules, and you're able to set up different settings pertaining to security, such as two-factor authentication, etc. And my favorite aspect is the reporting. You're going to be able to look at different reports that you've configured. There are dozens and dozens of different reports. You can look at the different alerts that are being created. So again, if you have people signing in where they shouldn't be, maybe somebody in Morocco all of a sudden gets access to an account, that will set off an alert. Somebody deletes a file, you'll get an alert. Somebody modifies a budget template, you'll get an alert, etc. And then looking at things like audits, you're going to be able to look back at the month and see what was done inside of your association, sit down, make a plan for the next month, and act accordingly. If you want to get started with G Suite, I think it's very important to consider these 4 categories. It's very important to clearly define the resources, processes, and organizational hierarchies of your G Suite instance. You want to make sure that you're simplifying administration, you're reducing costs, increasing productivity, and implementing another of other benefits for your organization. So again, I think it's very important to make sure that you have an organized structure and you're building G Suite out in a proper way in order to leverage this technology in the most effective way possible. We're going to get into that in a little bit here. Also looking at security. We want to ensure that the integrity of your organization's data is secure. We want to make sure that it remains accessible to people, and there are a number of other things we want to make sure that stay intact here, such as the confidentiality of your data. So we're going to be able to do all of that with G Suite, and it's very important to note, based off the organizational hierarchies that we set up previously, that we're setting the permissions and access to data before we move forward and actually deploy this instance. Functionality is also very important, obviously. We want to make sure that everybody that needs to complete specific tasks and is responsible for certain processes has all of the features and the functionality they need to complete that task. So making sure that people are not handicapped while they're using this stuff is very important. And again, oversight. Proactively managing G Suite is very important. You want to make sure that you're optimizing your organization's use of G Suite and that you're looking at the data that it provides you with as you do so. So talking about organization, this is kind of my secret sauce here. You want to make sure, again, that you're simplifying administration because you're going to be able to reduce costs, you're going to be able to automate things, you're going to be able to grow your organization faster. There's a number of benefits to this. And I start off with the administrators. So you want to make sure that anybody in your organization that is going to be administrating things knows what their role is, they know the responsibilities, the expectations, the deliverables for that role, and they understand what they're going to be doing as an administrator. So Google offers these types of administrators. Super admins have access of your entire organization. Group admins have access over groups. User management has administrative privileges over users. Help desk admins are able to do things like reset passwords, change application access, and then services admins are able to do the same sort of thing that help desk can do, but specific to certain applications and services. And mobile admins are able to administrate mobile devices and certain applications. Now, this is these next three categories here are some of my favorite things to do with people, which is organizing your business or your nonprofit in a way that makes sense. So the first thing that's very important to do is make sure that you've organized your association into individuals, organizational units, and groups. So an individual is obviously an individual. Maybe they're a board member, maybe they're a volunteer, maybe they're a retiree, maybe they're the charitable accountant, maybe they're an event coordinator. Whatever that individual is, it's very important to define their role. And that role is going to be part of a group. So if you have, for example, a digital marketer or a social media manager, they're going to be part of the marketing group. And that marketing group could be part of the sales and marketing organizational unit. Or maybe you have the social media marketer who's part of the digital marketing group, which is part of the overall marketing organizational unit. So once we've got this hierarchy set up, we're going to be able to very clearly look at what our organization looks like and get it set up in a way that makes sense in the most efficient way, where people don't have overlapping roles or responsibilities, and we're able to make sure that people who are strongest in their positions are able to work in their positions without any sort of setbacks, and they're empowered with the proper applications, resources, and processes that they need to complete their goals. So once we've defined the individuals, organizational units, and groups inside of our association, it's very important to define the responsibilities, expectations, and deliverables for each of these roles. Because if people don't understand those three things, they're not going to be able to get, one, it boosts morale. I've seen a huge morale boost when we implemented this kind of stuff. You're going to notice a big increase in productivity. People have a clear set of directions, and it's very important to make sure those three things are laid out. And then finally, you want to make sure that you're laying out the proper permissions for individuals, organizational units, and groups. So it's much easier to assign permissions to a group so that people are going to be able to join a group or be allocated to a group or an organizational unit, and they automatically inherit permissions to calendars and to files and to everything else. That way you don't have any risk for human error. You don't have any risk of people missing different files, or maybe they get granted things they shouldn't have access to and all this kind of stuff. So very important to make sure you define those things. Looking at the resources section, we want to make sure that we're sharing resources and that we've allocated what is a shared resource. We've designated what is a private resource. We were able to identify any files that our organization needs and the file hierarchies that contain these files. We want to make sure we've identified and laid out any devices that we're going to be using in our association, such as a projector or a shared laptop or a Chromebook, etc. We want to make sure that we have all of the applications that each individual organizational unit and group needs access to in order to complete their responsibilities, expectations, and deliverables. And we want to make sure that any of the directories and workflows that are required, again, of the individuals, organizational units, and groups are clearly laid out. That way, when we've laid out all of these tasks between these two categories here, users and resources, we know that everyone knows what their job is, where they sit in the organization, and what they're responsible for, and they know what they need to do to get the job done. The next thing that we need to focus on is what is it that they need to do to get the job done. And this is where the automation thing can come into effect. So individual tasks. A lot of people have individual tasks they need to do. It's a one-off thing. Maybe they need to respond to this one email. Maybe they need to go out and drop a check off somewhere. It's something that's just a one-off. A lot of people have repetitive tasks. Again, to use email as an example, every morning at 6 a.m. when you come in, check your email. Every day when you leave, make sure you clock out. These things that they do on a repetitive basis. The next thing would be scheduled tasks. Maybe you have quarterly reviews with your board. Maybe you have a yearly fundraiser that you have set up. So it's very important to identify those three things and make sure that you've laid out the processes for those three categories, because then your organization is going to be able to automate those things and strip away a lot of the mundane tasks that your volunteers and members have to take care of. Another fourth category is projects. A lot of people will have giant projects that they need to manage, and it's important to identify those and break those down with your users into the different resources and processes that they need to complete projects as well. And then, again, as I mentioned previously, my personal method of getting stuff like this done is PPDIOO, which is prepare, plan, deliver, implement, operate, and optimize. So it's very important to make sure that you're following that structure of things. There are another number of webinars available online if you have any more questions about that, but I like to follow this as a service provider because it means that I'm going to be able to prepare, plan, and deliver, design. I'm going to prepare, plan, and design proper solutions for my clients before we implement them. It's very important to make sure that we do something once the right way versus having to do it multiple times and cost people time and money. So being able to prepare, plan, and design things for our clients is very important. And once we implement them, we've got everything properly laid out. It's very easy for people to follow along with what we're doing. And then we're going to go ahead and operate. We're going to go ahead and just go through the day-to-day operations with people for a little while, see what we can collect in terms of data, get feedback from folks, and then we're going to optimize based off of the data that we collect from people operating inside of this new system. Very important to follow those categories. Moving on to security from organization. The next thing that we're going to want to look at is the security for each of these categories inside of G Suite. We want to make sure that users understand the policies and best practices. We want to make sure they're enforcing strong passwords. We want to make sure that you have mandatory two-factor authentication set up. This means that when people are using this new platform, they're not going to be able to simply access their accounts with their password. We want to have a secondary layer of protection for them. We want to make sure that we've properly defined the admin roles and giving them to individuals that are responsible with these roles. We want to make sure that we're managing the connected devices that have access to our data, that we've set up proper Google groups so that we can access different permissions and set things up that way. We want to make sure that the users in our association are getting trained in things like social engineering and data management. Moving on to applications, we want to make sure that any sort of less secure app is not able to access your data. You don't want to have an application from 2012 that hasn't been updated, or some app that a 14-year-old Ukrainian kid that wants to hack your system put together is being accessed and implemented into your organization and being granted access to your calendar and files. We want to make sure that different security protocols like DLP, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are set up to protect your email transmissions, and make sure that any malicious emails that are sent in are being caught and flagged before they get to your staff to reduce chances of things like phishing scams from coming in. We want to make sure that external recipient warnings come in. Again, if someone is pretending to be your boss or somebody inside of the organization, you should get a flag saying that this is a spoofed email. Getting things like third-party applications, we want to make sure we're managing those as well. Again, if you're adding something like Honey or you're adding in Power Sheets to your Google Sheets, you want to make sure that you've properly administrated that program so that it has limited access to your data as well, which is why it's important to create a whitelist of trusted applications to prevent anyone from being able to install anything that they want into your organization without having to contact an administrator. And setting internal, external access is also very important, and setting up permissions for things like shared drives is also very important. Looking at your data, it's very important to follow the 3-2-1 backup principle. Your data needs to be in 3 different locations at all times across 2 different platforms, one of those platforms being completely independent from your association. So a company like Umbrella IT Services is able to take your data, back it up in our secure servers, and make sure that if you get hit by ransomware, or a bad volunteer or employee deletes things, or if someone that tries to delete any of their emails, this kind of stuff, you're going to be able to recover that data very, very easily. You also want to make sure that while people are transmitting data over a network back and forth, such as sending an email or downloading data or syncing their information, they're using a secure network to do so, or they're at least using a VPN that they trust. We also want to make sure that you're using things like critical event alerting. Again, if someone's deleting files, modifying a budget, signing into an account from Monaco or Morocco, these kind of things, we want to make sure that we're getting notifications about that. We also want to set up secure access restrictions to prevent things like from happening in the first place. We want to be disabling location history so we're not invading our volunteers and our staff's privacy. We want to make sure that we're allowing internal or external access, again, to our data as well as to applications. And we want to make sure that we have proper recovery procedures in place in case something does happen. We're going to be able to recover that data quickly without any form of panic. Next thing we want to talk about is devices. So looking at devices, we have critical event alerting, we have scheduled software updates, we have anti-malware software, full disk encryption, mobile device management, event audit logging, and warranty and support. So again, for our devices, very important to make sure that we're doing critical event alerting. If something like a hard drive is failing on a device or a virus is detected, we need to know about that stuff. We also need to make sure that we're doing things like scheduled software updates, because for the scheduled software updates, it's very important to make sure that your device stays secure and up to date. We don't want to have anybody falling behind on stuff like that. You don't want to have a software update pop up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You want it to happen at Friday at 11 p.m. when you're gone from the office or when your computer is at home. It's also very important to make sure you're using proper protection like anti-malware software. You're doing full disk encryption to make sure if your device gets stolen, no one's going to be able to get access to it. And you're using things like mobile device management to wipe your device in case it gets stolen. You're going to see what applications folks are using, etc. And again, with the event and audit logging, if something goes wrong, we're going to be able to look at the logs and see what went wrong where. And with warranty and support, you're going to be able to get your device fixed quickly. In terms of oversight, this is one of our final slides here. Google offers you things called highlights, where you're going to be able to look at the highlight of your organization. That could mean that a great deal of users were using this application, and then compared to last month, you sent 10% more emails, or you had 20% new devices were added on, or your organization grew 12%, and this kind of stuff. In terms of reports, you're going to be able to monitor usage, potential security risks, user collaboration, and other metrics in the domain. So again, what that means essentially is you'll get a report saying that this many attempts to breach into your organization happened. Your users shared this many files. This many emails were sent out to share with external domains, etc. It's very interesting to look at these reports because you're going to be able to use this data and optimize your association accordingly. Looking at audits, you're going to be able to audit your users and the activity that happens inside of applications and shared directories, and you're going to be able to look at what's going on inside of your domain and make sure that everything is up to spec. Looking at alerts, again, you're going to be able to get notifications about events or problems that may be occurring and make sure you're reacting to them in a timely manner. So again, these 4 things here gives you all the oversight that you need to be able to manage your G Suite, and it means that you're going to be able to optimize your association. You're going to be able to make sure that you are increasing in productivity year over year. You're reducing the costs. You're reducing downtime. Your staff is getting the training where they need to, because where they use the applications, you're going to be most organizations use about 20% of these tools 80% of the time, and it's important to identify what those 20% of the tools are using this oversight section, so that you're going to be able to give them the training they need for that 80% of their daily time that they're investing. So again, very important to make sure that you're considering the oversight section of G Suite. That is the least used, most overlooked section of G Suite that I work with. Next, to talk about best practices, policies, and guidelines, it's very important to make sure that people are trained in data management, they're trained in bringing their own device, they're trained in acceptable use, they're trained in a business continuity plan, security response plan, and password guidelines. So again, looking at things like a data management policy is very important. You want to make sure people understand where to put files, how to access files. When people are bringing their own device into work, they need to understand what acceptable use is. Their kids should not be installing Fortnite add-ons where they keep their budgeting files, for example. If you have a business continuity plan in place, this means that if your laptop has coffee spilt on it, people are going to be able to automatically go to the back room where you have the spare laptop set up. They're going to be able to follow the disaster recovery plan and recover their data very, very quickly. You're also going to be able to follow the security response plan in case things are deleted or an account gets hacked. And you can prevent all of this stuff by just following the password guidelines that people put in place in the first place. Underneath best practices, we always recommend phishing scams. People be aware of phishing scams. 91% of attacks that happen to nonprofits nowadays are coming in through social engineering, where the hackers hack people instead of hacking the devices themselves. So it's very important to make sure that you're keeping in mind that people will be trying to scam you by pretending to be someone or an organization that you trust. Make sure that the people are very aware of that stuff. Also, make sure to never leave your devices unattended or unlocked. It's not a good idea to go to the bathroom in a library or go to the bathroom at the office and leave your device unlocked. You always want to make sure that it's locked. That way that you're making sure that you're not being held accountable for someone else's actions. You also want to reject unsolicited offers for help via text, email, or phone. I know that's really nice of Microsoft to call you and to offer you advice. But chances are it's not Microsoft, it's somebody trying to maliciously access your data. If you notice any irregularities, malfunctions, or other problems with G Suite or with your devices, make sure you're reporting those to IT or the appropriate administrator. Never give out your personal information via email or phone, and don't give out passwords via email, text, or phone either. I hope that goes without saying nowadays. And finally, training. I think it's very important to make sure that people using G Suite are going through security awareness training so they can catch things like phishing scams, whaling, all these different types of attacks that can happen. Again, I've covered all of that in a previous webinar about IT security. Make sure people are aware of social engineering, and most importantly, make sure they're getting productivity training. Moving over to a platform like G Suite for nonprofits is very easy to do. It's very straightforward, but you want to make sure that people understand what they can do inside of these applications with a much more detailed overview than what I'm providing right now, with an in-depth walkthrough of each of the applications. You want to make sure they get a follow-up training session after people have been able to use it for a little while. You look at the reporting section of your G Suite, and you can see again that 20% of your organization is using 80% of these tools, and 80% of your organization is using 20% of those tools. And you're going to be able to make sure that the balance happens where people are getting trained where they need to get trained. Very, very important to make sure that that ongoing training is happening. And that's it. So normally we would do a Q&A section here. We've gotten rid of this section for now, as it is not a live session anymore. We're now doing the pre-recorded, as you can see from that cut where Siri got activated on my iPhone that I didn't know was on. So I do apologize about that. But if you do have any questions, please make sure to leave those in the comments below or send them to techtips@umbrellaitservices.ca, where we're going to be able to answer those for you. And if you do have any interest in a more in-depth walkthrough of these G Suite applications, or if you'd like to see another webinar on organizing your association, please let me know, and I'm happy to dive into that for everybody at a later date. So in the meantime, I'd like to thank everyone very much for tuning in. I hope you have a great week. And if you do have any suggestions for a future video, again, please leave those in the comments down below, and I will talk to you very soon. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.